What you need to know to keep your family happy and healthy this winter. By Barbara Alden Wilson from Parents Magazine. One of 14 Ojo images. It's cold and flu season wears on. It's pretty likely you or someone in your family have played host to one of the unpleasant respiratory viruses making the rounds. Getting rid of these unwelcome guests, or avoiding them altogether, starts with knowing which strategies and beliefs are helpful, and which aren't. Here, we set the record straight. 2 of 14 Jason Todd. Why it's not true. The viruses contained in flu shots have been killed. The pros say they've been inactivated, which means they really can't cause infection. Getting a flu shot may cause symptoms that feel like the flu, though, admits Susan Coffin, MD, Medical Director of Infection Prevention and Control at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Most often, people misattribute the achy side effect that can sometimes follow the flu shot with the onset of the flu itself, she says. There are also so many other respiratory viruses floating around out there that you could catch one after you get the flu vaccine, and it may seem as though the shot caused it. It hasn't. Unlike the flu shot, the nasal spray flu vaccine, live attenuated influenza vaccine, or LAIV, also known as flu mist, does contain live viruses. The viruses are weakened, though, and shouldn't cause the flu drive. Coffin says. Mild reactions from the nasal spray flu vaccine may include runny nose, nasal congestion or cough, chills, tiredness and weakness, sore throat, and headache. These side effects are mild and clear up quickly, especially compared with the symptoms of the flu, she says. 3 of 14 iStock photo. Why it's not true. Most people know by now that only a cold virus causes a cold. But many cling to the belief that going outside not properly dressed, or with wet hair, on a cold day will worsen the symptoms of a cold virus. This is also untrue. I think this comes from people noticing that more people get sick during the colder months, and that is true, Dr. Coffin says. The real reason? Proximity. People generally spend more time indoors, closer together, and touch hands or come in contact with coughing and sneezing more. So, viruses tend to make the rounds and strike more people. But being in the cold weather will only make you colder, and perhaps make your nose and eyes run a little more, not sicker. 4 of 14 Josh Titus. Why it's not true. Phlegm is the thick, sticky mucus that drips down the back of the throat when a person has a cold. Drinking milk may make phlegm thicker and more irritating to the throat than it would normally be, but it doesn't cause the body to make more phlegm, says James Stuckelberg, MD, consultant in the Division of Infectious Diseases and a professor of medicine at Mayo Medical School in Rochester, Minnesota. That's a myth. In fact, drive. Steckelberg recommends that cold sufferers drink or eat dairy products such as cream-based soups, ice cream, pudding, or milk, as they are soothing on sore throats and provide calories they otherwise might not eat while they're feeling so lousy. If you find that you or your child develops sinusitis, inflammation of the sinuses, and/or ear infections after consuming dairy products, a dairy allergy may be involved. Discuss your suspicions with your doctor or with your child's pediatrician. 5 of 14 Why it's not true. If you have a cold, you're most contagious for the first 2 to 3 days, whether you have a fever or not, according to the National Institutes of Health. Sometimes, at our house, the fever is the grand finale of everyone's cold. It shows up at the very end, says Mary Linda Swiatek, mother of 2 children, ages 14 and 12, in Lake Mary, Florida. Swiatek says she has long been aware that contagiousness can precede visible symptoms. The contagious phase of a cold virus is usually over by day 7 to 10. Adults and older children with colds generally have a low fever or no fever. Young children, though, often run a fever around 100 degrees to 102 degrees Fahrenheit. The flu can be stealthy as well. According to the CDC, most healthy adults may be able to infect others from 1 day prior to showing symptoms and for 5 days after that, with or without a fever. Some young children with weakened immune systems may be contagious for longer than a week. 6 of 14 Alexandra Rowley. Why it's not true. The flu and the common cold are caused by different viruses. So a cold can't really morph into the flu. If you or your child develops the flu, it was caused by a flu virus in the first place. Because the 2 types of illnesses have similar symptoms, it can be challenging to tell the difference between them based on how you feel. But generally, the flu is worse than a cold, with more intense symptoms such as fever, body aches, extreme tiredness, and a dry cough. People with colds are more likely to have a runny or stuffy nose. Colds generally don't result in serious health problems, such as pneumonia, bacterial infections, or hospitalizations. Special tests usually must be done within the first few days of illness to determine if the person has the flu. Last year, Jennifer Higgins of Midlothian, Virginia, had her then 11-year-old daughter Lauren tested for H1N1. The diagnosis was positive. Higgins, after showing the same symptoms 12 hours later, deduced that she, too, had the virus. Although Higgins never was tested, her doctor agreed with her self-diagnosis. 7 of 14 good shoot. Jupiter. Why it's not always true. Most people who get the flu will have a mild case and won't need medical care or antiviral drugs. They'll fully recover in less than 2 weeks. But make no mistake, the CDC warns that complications from the flu, whether it's H1N1, the seasonal flu, or another flu virus, can be deadly. An average of 36,000 people die each year from the flu and more than 200,000 are hospitalized. Pneumonia, bronchitis, sinus infections, and ear infections are examples of flu-related complications. The flu can also make chronic health problems worse. For example, people with asthma may experience asthma attacks while they have the flu.